Before creation, before form, before even being itself, Kabbalah speaks of Ein Sof, the infinite. Not a god amongst things, but the boundless source within all things. In this episode of Chasing the Past, we step into one of the deepest ideas in Jewish mysticism, the nature of this divine infinity and non-duality. We'll explore Ein Sof and how it contains all existence without being limited by itself, how the infinite emanates these Sefirot without dividing itself, why reality is understood as a living expression of this divine presence. This is not theology meant to define God. It's an invitation to rethink existence, consciousness, and the very idea of separation. Let's begin. Welcome back, guys. Today, this episode really racked my mind. And you'll understand hopefully at the end. I still don't. I want to make that pretty clear. I'm interested in this, so I'm trying to learn it, or trying to get into this, rigorous study of how to understand essentially the non-understandable and the infinite existence that changes and adapts. So I have a slight headache from all the stuff I was able to find. And again, we're using the Essential Kabbalah book. I'm really enjoying that. But when I find something in that book that I'm like, I could probably grab a hold of that. I could probably understand that. Nope. I can't. I'm trying. Anyway, got my tea. The first section that I have here, there's a couple, and then there's some subcategories, but I think understanding infinity, or the infinite, and this non-duality, I think is really important in Kabbalah. So, the Ein Sof is this nameless being, so often described as also nothingness, or nothingness, which is ayin, or it looks like ayin, but I'm pretty sure it's ayin. And that doesn't mean that it's non-existent. But because it's infinite and it's incomprehensible and formless and it lacks any attributes or limitations, well, then it gets a little more difficult to try to describe something that doesn't have any of those. And so this nothingness, right, is used to represent divine nothingness, right? And from there, all creation originates. And the idea of this name is actually really cool after I started kind of going through it, but it's like this absolute unity, right? So it represents this state of perfect unity with both emptiness and fullness, but they're not differentiated. They're not different. Like we would say oh, that's full and empty. Well, no, it's both. And so the goal here is, how does this infinite, formless, no attribute, all limitations, right? It doesn't have any limitations, but it needs something to communicate to the lower areas, to us. And so that's where we get this the 10 emanations. So Ein Sof would be the emanator. So he's the source from which the 10 Sefirot, these divine emanations, originate from. They come from. And they work their way through this tree of life ladder into actual existence. So something we could experience or be a part of or understand. And a important thing here was okay, I keep seeing certain videos and tags that have this non-duality, right? Non-dualistic, and other, despite this being a very complex, multi-layered system already in this tree of life, and then learning how to navigate it or build some type of philosophical foundation, the consensus I was getting is that it's very non-dualistic. So the core dual premise, right, is that the divine pervades all existence, right? There's no distinction between there's no separation between these things, between worlds, between realms, between everything. It is everything, and we're inside of it, experiencing this, kind of like the body of God idea. And I mean, that kind of is what this is. So some there's other later, like the Hasidic philosophy, like warn against some of these things about, like, against dualism. We'll get to that later. But I mean, the premise is still good for a metaphor. It's like you're giving something, you're like separating God, but there's no separation. Like, that can't happen. And in the episode before, pantheism, which is this consensus that God is in everything and everything's in God. So that gets complicated for human beings because we need separation. We need to understand and differentiate. And so I think that's why it's making it hard, at least hard for me when I was doing this research, is trying to put myself in a spot where, and again, still have the headache, where I'm not doing that, or I'm not like, and I think this is important to note, just kind of a side note, with any kind of practice or any kind of belief system, it's like, what as a human being are you separating, right? Like, you can pick between the infinite and the, omnipotent. Everything's here and not here, right? You can have that. But in most practices, we kind of make this separation. We have to make these dividing lines and put God in a box, is what it kind of feels like. And I'm trying not to do that. And I think it's a cool thought experiment if we're going like philosophical, like trying to build something from this. But I'm really trying to break that barrier personally for myself, and then give a more a more sanctioned approach to maybe truth seeking or trying to find answers in a different way that I would look at it or you would look at it. And this system may be complex, but we'll go through the different ideas and the concepts that kind of bridge this together. And again, we'll use that book as a resource. But yeah, we'll get there. So the next piece that I wanted to bring up is this idea, and I do like that if there's a concept, right? We can't put ourselves in a box either. So if we think like, oh, this is it, and it's always been it, and that's not changing, we as human beings have adapted, built, and grown hopefully towards the positive of certain things to get a better understanding. And so one of these normally misunderstood concepts is contradiction, which looks like some titsum. Are you kidding me? See, anyway, tism to, come on. I even sat here and I practiced doing this. Anyway, I'll put it up there. It'll probably come to me again. But this mechanism of contradiction is used to explain how this finite world can exist within an infinite God, right? So there are a bunch of different historical developments. So we have like early Kabbalah, they have this concept, and it emphasizes this absolute, right? But this absolute is hidden. It's a hiddenness of Ein Sof. And then you get later, like the 16th century, they call it Lurianic Kabbalah. And so this focuses on the role of contradiction and then the breaking of vessels. So it's focusing on this dynamic, often, tragic process when divinity unfolds. It's unfolding itself. And, it's not always so, sunshine and rainbows. I bet we all can relate to that. And in the 18th century, we talked about Hasidic, but Hasidism is this radical emphasis, like this radical high priority emphasis on nothing exists in this world except the absolute unity, which is in Ein Sof, which is God, right? And from those developments, we get, this more of a concealment, not an absence, right? And so this contradiction in this light, right? So that God concealed this divine light so that finite beings could perceive themselves. And the perception is separation. So when that's perfect too. That's a perfect segue to what we just talked about. We human beings separate stuff. Like it's hard not to. And it's kind of neat that even though the infinite or God would do this, so that way we could perceive ourselves and then go, oh, we're separated from them, but we're not. And maybe to me it feels like it's given us a chance to understand that we are part of this greatness, this infinite, this always changing, evolving, adapting. We are participating in this. We're participating in life and existence, not just, fumbling through it. And the separation of the world then is just like an illusion, which again, you get into, holographic principle of like, oh, this world's the illusion. And you were like, yeah, like different languages, different ideas, different time periods, but kind of come into the same thing you look at, right? We just have modern stuff. And that gives us a really good feel on, oh, it's just like a holographic thing. It's like they're calling it the same thing, right? It's concealed, it's an illusion, right? And to overcome this is then to realize like this unity of us and all things. And this is part of this role is for God to allow that so we could build from there. And so I wanted to get some of these contemporary ideas of, okay, how do they, if there's some theological debates for this contradiction and this divine light, like what are they? And so one of them I found was more of a like psychological development where it's the metaphor for gestation. So the infinite, right, the mother contradicts to create a space for the finite, which is the fetus. And I'm like, oh, I bring it down to earth, right? Bring it down. We all can relate. Like, out of all the notes that I have, I get it, right? Like, that makes sense. And there's this postmodernism language where the other side is viewing this concealment of divine light as an act, like a linguistic act on purpose. And so that the Hebrew letters act as both the tools of creation and the shells in which we live in, and then thus conceal this divine light. And then something I really liked was the generative concealment idea. And this is that all creativity requires a temporary withdrawal or self-limitation, allowing for the birth of something new. That's really cool. And it, on a broad, I know we're talking about a specific item here, but if no matter what curious, esoteric type of thing we're looking at, that kind of applies to a bunch. Because it means that God himself realizes he might have to, even in an illusionary, perceptive way, has to take a step backwards, right? Allow for the withdrawal, limitate himself, but that allows for the birth of something new for us, for new things to constantly emerge, evolve, and build. And something I really got from that too is this comparison. And when I was going through some of these comparisons of how do I describe to you or help lead you in some way towards understanding this infinite thing, this creative, no limitations force. And it reminded me a lot of Brahman, right? Of this like, it reminded me a lot of all these different ideas, whether it's like, and some get kind of twisted a little, where it's like, oh, okay, in Hinduism, yeah, this makes sense, right? Oh, it's like Brahman. And then you have like an Alan Watts type figure who's saying that it's this infinite flow and we're just participating in the flow. And, it's the idea of all of these traditions, it's like, it's still the ultimate infinite identity and reality, but we're just getting to live and experience it here in the hopes that maybe, we can progress, we can do something better than just what we're doing right now. And that feels, especially in our modern day, our modern era, it feels kind of like we're at a standstill. Like maybe ego's taking a little bit of a seat on the throne for a minute, instead of kind of like backing up and realizing maybe there's a little bit more to our potential than we think, we have access to or could even achieve. And this like unity of opposites is the distinction of, like, we need things to exist and not exist, right? This Ein Sof doesn't need that. God is this, the coincidence of opposites is what I put down. And yeah, I think that's just, even right now, it's hard to wrap my brain around it. So, like, where the illusion is that something's empty, something isn't empty, or it's there and not there. It's like it's both. And so the whole idea of defining, we did a long trip on this here, is that he represents he or she, Ein Sof represents the ultimate non-dual infinite nature of God. So the ultimate truth is that everything's fundamental and solely inside the body of God. So that's kind of, and that seems relatable. That seems really close to home for me. And so I have some of the printouts here, and I've highlighted a bunch, but I have like 15 pages of this book and these notes. And so I really don't want to bog us down and lose track of like that main idea. And so I'll just read it. Doesn't matter. So in meaning, the essence of divinity is found in every single thing. Nothing but it exists. Since it causes everything to be, no thing can live by anything else. It enlivens them. Its existence exists in each existence. So it says, do not attribute duality to God. Let God be solely God. Because if you suppose that Ein Sof emanates until a certain point, and then from that point on is outside of it, you now have dualized. We've separated the inseparable, right? And it says it's better to think rather that all existence is God, and the stone is like a thing pervaded by divinity. So before anything emanated, there was only Ein Sof, right? Ein Sof was all that existed. It brought about into being, which exists, and there's nothing but it, right? You cannot find anything that exists apart from it. So there is nothing that is not pervaded by the power of divinity. If there were, Ein Sof would be limited, thus subject to duality. Don't do that. Rather, God is everything that exists. Though everything that exists is not God, it is present in everything, and everything comes into being from it. Nothing is devoid of its divinity. Because everything is within it, it is within everything and outside of everything. There is nothing but that. And so, like, I think the message here is pretty clear, right? Even if we go, okay, we're completely isolated and separated from God, we can never get there, which are some religious practices. That's, in this case, it's not true. It's both, right? It's away from us and it's down here, right? It's an illusion and it's reality, right? This, whoa, like, it's all one thing, even though we make the separation. So what this means is the key part from the previous video are these the 10 emanations, right? The Sefirots then have a purpose. They represent something. They have to act in the material world as God, but it's almost like the language doesn't compute, right? Like, I am creating and doing things. I'm taking a back seat to do this, or to emanate these creative forces, I guess, in this case. But there is no change, right? There's no division in the one who emanates and the one that are emanated from Ein Sof. And so this division and change do not apply to it. They apply only to the external emanations. So there's an example, which is this idea of like water, which also gets me back to this, the river analogy in like Zen Buddhism. But it says, to help you conceive this, imagine water flowing through vessels of different colors, white, red, green, and so forth. As the water spreads through those vessels, it appears to change into the colors of the vessels, although the water is devoid of all color. The change in color does not affect the water itself, just our perception of the water. So that's how the Sefirot, I feel like I'm going to mispronounce something again after the one we just had, but they're just like these vessels, right? And each of these colors, they have a function. And so their existence would be the light of Ein Sof, this divine light, but their existence is the water having no color at all. It does not change, it only appears to change, right? So our perception really is what kind of gets in the way, but if we kind of do this hard work and understand, then this light that closes these vessels, these emanations that is from Ein Sof, is kind of like, I don't know, the essence, right? But this essence does not change. So the unique part that we have is the right or the left that we make, these divinations we divide, but it means that neither judgment nor compassion, right, play. So even though they're emanating through the Sefirot, this like stained mosaic glass, right, judgment or compassion prevails. But I don't exactly know why that was in there, or I used the whole thing. Maybe it was the color reference, but anyway, the key point is that these 10 ladders, these 10 emanations, I guess, they're not ladders. You can go up and down. We'll get there later. But it's just present in all things. Well, all things are present in Ein Sof. So Ein Sof emanated its Sefirot through which its actions are performed. They serve as vessels for the actions deriving from Ein Sof in the world of separation and in below. So in fact, its existence and essence spreads through them. And so these qualities possess these, I call them unerasable names. I know already, I'm already getting nervous about trying to pronounce them. I apologize. But the key point is these, the names of the Sefirot, or these Sephirotic names, are names of God, but according to these actions or qualities. So, we have crown, we have wisdom, we have understanding, we have love, power, beauty, eternity, foundation, and kingdom. And so, Keter's crown, Chokmah's wisdom, Benai's understanding, Hesed is love, Yetzirah is power, Tiferet is beauty, Netzah, eternity, Yesod, foundation, Malchut, kingdom. And so the cool part is, when I'm going through these, they all also have names that are from names we'd recognize if we knew anything about the Torah or the Hebrew Bible. And like some of these is cool, like power, Yetzirah, right? That's Elohim. You have beauty, Tiferet, which is a divine name, Yod He Vah He. You have eternity, right? Looks like, oh, that one's not recognizable. My bad, you guys. Here it is. So Malchut, right? Kingdom is Adonai. So these names, just like the names in the Bible have different representations of God, now they have different representations of these emanations. So it kind of does have this flow that makes me go, I can relate to that. Like, that makes sense to me. I'm very familiar with, like, at least maybe in the West, reading some of this stuff. But the important part in defining these emanations and then Ein Sof itself is we might separate it, but they're not. And so this non-dualistic nature is the thing that is really going to be a struggle, because, even in old, just trying to free flow here for a minute, but the idea of other gods emanating is not like new, right? Like there's usually one, and I remember there was someone telling me like, oh, this is just in this practice. And I go, this isn't like a new concept. Like, the gods came from somewhere. Egypt is a perfect one that came in my head, right? Like, they all emanated from the sun god, right? And like, it just, I don't know why people are so confused. Like, this is not new, and it wasn't like made up or invented, at this time. Even if it was, who cares? Like, the way that I'm studying this is like making me see the world differently. positively, I might add. But it's inappropriate to say that like God himself, right, cannot be, how did they word it? I was reading it today. It was like, it's inappropriate to try to do this, like define God in this way. And so before the formation of, the universe, there was no need for any emanation. This holy, like simplistic light, it's just, it didn't need it. And so when it seems like, here, let me scroll. These are it seems like it's just repeating the same poem I picked up, but how much more so with Ein Sof, who we cannot depict, for whom we cannot speak, of whom we cannot posit either judgment or compassion, excitement or anger, change or limit, sleep or motion, or any quality whatsoever, either prior to the emanation or now. At the very beginning, Ein Sof emanated the subtle emanation, namely the 10 Sefirot, these noetic forms, from its essence, uniting with it, and then together constitute this complete union. So the Sefirot, Sefirah, I've heard all three. These are souls which clothe themselves in the 10 Sefirot called by name, and they serve as vessels for these 10 essences. So it's just like putting these qualities of God into a jar, and through those 10, right, then you get this comparison of judgment and compassion, or, the things that we split up, which I think is really, really interesting, because it means this. It also brings me back to something I was trying a long time ago, and I read his book, which is UFO of God and the Lady, and Chris Bledsoe, thank you, and the things that are happening are amazing, and I really, really went into going to that probably 3 years ago. I got the book, and I'm like, oh, this is clearly, bad. It's trickery. It's mimicry. And I'm like, what if one of these, what if the emanations of themselves, this mother figure, this divine energy, is really presenting itself, right? And that's kind of a test. Not a test in you fail or flunk, but the opportunity is a better answer, a better way to say that. And the opportunity is to understand something deeper about the human condition, maybe what we're capable of and what we're connected to because of this divine line of creation. And when I got to that understanding deeper into study, I go, you know what? It's not like that's so uncommon. It's just uncommon to me at the time because I've never heard it and I've never really understood anything other than what I was told. But now, as I kind of open up and I kind of try to, widen my scope, open my eyes a little bit, some of this stuff makes a lot more sense, especially if there's some evidence of interaction. And that would be a cool comparison, but that's also super deep, trying to connect Chris Bledsoe and his family to essentially the divine feminine and this divine motherly energy. That's I'm gonna have to take more than a week on that one, you guys. And the important part is, okay, these qualities that then emanated into these vessels where the souls, these created divine beings, can operate inside of, can make their way down to us. That's kind of the key here, and how these 10 emanations can work with God. They are God and are in God just like we are. Now, I'm not going to go through all this stuff, but there's a good chunk in this book, and I wonder if I could maybe put it down below, but it gives you, the point that gave me the headaches is the intensity of this order, because I'm a very visual person, so I have to kind of look at it, and so I have this whiteboard in front of me over here, and I'm like, it's big. I'm going to have to write all this down and try to make a visual flow chart to try to get an understanding. But if I just read it off, none of us, it's going to be a personal journey for you. So if this interests you, definitely recommend that book. And I definitely recommend going through some of these, but take breaks, right? Drink lots of water, right? Head's going to get a little difficult. You're going to go, But the and I think it's kind of neat too, where the connections in which this order plays. So the upper emanations need the lower ones, and the lower need the upper. So the power of the lower Sefirot is the upper one, and the power of the upper Sefirot is in the lower. So all of them need God, right? The infinite, right? All that is, that ever was, while it needs none of them, right? Which also means there's like a very unique like purpose in doing it, and it gives those qualities down to human beings. So when I say there's like a little, and that's in Gnostic too, there's a little spark of the divine in each one of us, right? This is a very complicated flowchart on why that makes sense to me, right? Because in a structured pattern order, even though very confusing, I can still see that pathway that gives a little spark of, the infinite in you. And maybe there's some underlying things that we, in our material world, would block out when we shouldn't be splitting and cutting those lines. And so, okay, another flowchart. I don't know if I'm going to go through that, but so kingdom, right? We talked about Malkut, is the location of the world of creation. So it's the location of the world of formation, which is the location of the world of actualization until emanation reaches the earth. And so that is defined as Malkut or kingdom. And so these various channels have been ascribed to these Sefirot, signaling the path and the ray of illumination from the first Sephira to its recipient, and the pathway from the recipient back to the emanating Sephira so that it can receive. So it's a communication up and down, right? And so the joining of these, like two aspects, it's like a channel. So these various types of channels, even though innumerable, have kind of a path that have been mapped out. You can kind of get an idea. So yeah, there's only like 8 of them, so we'll go through it. So there's Keter, crown, to Hokmah, which is wisdom, and then Keter to Benai, and then Keter to Teferit. So I think it's really cool that also there's an aspect of Christian theology of this Trinity, right? And then we have these all in 3s, some in 4, 5, right? That's what makes it so difficult. It's like there are common connection points, but then it also could be something completely different. And there's a whole new way of understanding. And so I think maybe the cool part about it for me is if we have even, like maybe you're starting at step 1 and you have the tree of life and you have the flow chart, and then you start to work on this and you build through. As you grow, right, maybe you're learning more, you're feeling more, you're understanding, oh no, I'm connected to, I'm connected to this right now. Then it also evolves and moves with you, right? It's like this constant changing ebb and flow, which does give me this, Zen Buddhist river, floating down the river mentality. And so these combinations all have these 10 Sefirot together, these emanations, and, long story short, they have certain pathways. We can understand and learn those pathways, but it's just too complicated. So the thing that I kind of wanted to get to towards the end, because we're pretty deep in this, is the importance of why you're doing this. So like if for me, I'm very curious, and I do want to like understand maybe some of these, whether it's paranormal, whether it's extraterrestrial, right? There's a bunch of these subjects that are just booming in our current modern era that we kind of are trying to use a material science to find. And I wasn't really getting a good answer. So I tried to go into these I just started with the popular type of ideas and then build from here. And that was 3-4 years ago. And it's been fun ever since. And I feel like every day I'm developing, I'm learning something new or importantly, and I think this is the key point to the entire podcast on Kabbalah, is that at the end, you doing this right now, you're understanding more about yourself, right? And it doesn't have to be this one. It could be any of the other ones that kind of share similarities, practices, religious beliefs, what have you. If you're not like kind of putting yourself in a box, like you're putting God in a box, then you have a potential to grow deeper in understanding who you are. And who you are, technically, is a piece of this infinite divine mind that chose to create you, which isn't so far uncommon from anything else. I don't know why that's so difficult. Like, people get really mad when I'm like, that's really beautiful in the end of the day. Because even though it's like, to be honest, I think it's ego coming into play, where it's like, what? No, we're blah, 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 right? We're so much better than that. And I'm like, yes, but also just like the emanations and just like Ein Sof choosing to take a back seat, like he's taking the back seat to like create you or have the opportunity to create something like you. And so you get to be here and you get to do this because of that decision. And that all seems super cool to me. Like, I'm really in love with that concept. I really got that. I probably read those things 4 or 5 times, like, right? Because there's a chapter on Ein Sof, and I'm just going through it going, whoa. Like, that is, like, fascinating and beautiful and poetic, and it's just all these positive qualities, and, you know, it makes me feel a little bit better. And maybe it doesn't have to be true too, right? I think it's beautiful to think that way rather than thinking that it's the opposite. And again, I'm there splitting right there. I'm separating right there. I'm doing what I'm not supposed to. But the warning is, it's improper for the seeker to probe the essence of these. We already went through that first 3 Sefirot, or going through those systems. I'll try to attach them, but since they constitute this divine mind, wisdom, and understanding, it's also improper to probe the essence of the hidden substance that creates all that exists. So, since it is one with its will, wisdom, and understanding, its essential qualities, it is not proper to probe. However, it's not wrong for us to explore from Hesed to Gevurah on down, for these qualities have been emanated to conduct the beings below. Whoever explores them thoroughly is rewarded for this zeal. Concerning that it is written, right? Let the mother go, that's understanding, Banah. The children may take you, which is to search and explore. The activities of Hesed abound. We will not mention here what is apt for the seeker. So there is kind of this warning, like, hey, some stuff, which I think is interesting too, some stuff you just won't get, we won't be able to understand, and that's fine. Now, I have a ton of these notes. I'm just going to go down here because there is something about this balance from this unity. So the benefits of this union of Ein Sof and the structure of the tree of life, these emanations, right? It says, from it derives the male souls from the male side and the female souls from the female side. So not like they are gendered, but that the kind of like how the presence of someone who, like, oh, that's a gentle touch, like a mother, right? That really helped me understand this divine mother understanding. And there's a balance between the two extremes. And so love and judgment, right? There's a balance between them, and that balance is rachamim, which is compassion. And I thought that was super beautiful, right? What ties, love and then judgment, right? The middle ground is then compassion, right? Like, I could read that over and over. I could put that on a t-shirt, my body. It's a constant remembrance of like, hey, sometimes we don't have to be, so thoroughly correct. We don't have to like rip into somebody for like, why didn't you know that, right? There are like, have compassion, think, be in the shoes of the other person, right? That's going to tie both love and judgment together. And that's how we're going to weave this thing properly and maintain this balance between those extremes. And so you have different harmonizations, yada, yada, yada. And so you should realize the holy spiritual entities are unlike lowly human actions. For when a human being performs an action, the object acted upon acquires the desired form and by necessity loses its previous form and nature. Having been transformed, its previous state of existence is no longer recalled. This is not the case with the Sefirot. And with everything that develops from them, for their previous mode of existence, it is not absence. Rather, they evolve from one mode of existence to another. So, they adapt. They have a constant, the location we do not know, right? Just like you can't pinpoint infinity. But they adapt and evolve because they're from the one, existence, infinity, Ein Sof, right? So they have the ability to evolve from one mode to another. And that's why they can interact with this material world and interact down here with those who can essentially perceive it. And so this divine light that emanates from the Sefirot and radiates from above down to below, that's the path we're talking about. And so it kind of reminds me of these like communication, these communication vessels that operate on this divine infinite will that also adjust to how we adjust. So, the common like what's happening above is happening below. What's happening below is happening above, right? It's this interaction between this conduit up and down that's constant. It's all the time. And it's always changing, which is also why it's hard to pin some of these traditional ideas like right down. And so if you are doing that, at least based on the reading here, you're putting God in this box that is this or that rather than everything together all at once. That's a movie, isn't it? That's pretty, good title. Good title. I feel like I've heard that somewhere. So upon knowing that, right, we're going to get into this last little realms of existence stemming from Ein Sof, from God himself. And I think we're going to close out there. So here lies the mystery of the reflection of light from below to above, the mystery of the reversal of the light striking a mirror and returning to its source. Between each two qualities, a conduit runs up and down. Within that quality itself, some flows from below to above and some from above to below, right? So this existence stems from God, extending to the lowest point, and then it's divided into 4 different divisions. So this first division is emanation. And so namely that is the 10 emanated Sefirot through which separates the light of infinity, of God. The second is this realm of the throne of glory, right? That is creation. And so this light spreads through it from the 10 Sefirot, called here the Sefirot of creation. Thus the light of Ein Sof clothes itself, I like that metaphor, clothes itself in them through the medium of emanated light. So, number 3, this third realm comprises the 10 bands of angels and the celestial palaces. So the light of the 10 Sefirot spreads also through them. That is interesting. That right there, we could take apart and we could completely, whoa. Sorry to break the, lesson here. There are, in string theory, I'm pretty sure there are 10 dimensional strings or bands that we can't really perceive, but we can measure. Whoa. So, that would be really cool if we as human beings are able to somehow take the infinite with the knowledge that we have, let's just use string theory in this case, match up these dimensions, these bands, and then that's maybe where you can go all supernatural there, where you can do the way out there popular UAP connection and existence or interdimensional beings or physical beings. That would be so many, 10 bands of these celestial palaces. So that means there'd be an abundance of different beings, just like we have, we have my cats running around right now. Like, we could just be one of a bunch in this realm, this material area. But also, if you go up or down in something else, if, infinity decided to create, let's say, a being in this case, somewhere else in a realm that doesn't make sense to us, we can't really perceive it, that makes a lot of sense with these interactions from things that are so divine or so, the opposite, right? But again, we're making dualistic practices by separating both. But I hope that doesn't make any sense. I understand. I'm going to try to get into that later in a video because I think that's really cool that we just plug that in, me and you, like right here. I typed these notes. I had that all down. I didn't even put that together till right now. Interesting. And so in this third realm, these 10 bands of angels in the celestial palaces, this one is formation. And so the Sefirot spread through them. They are called the 10 Sefirot of formation. Thus, the light of Ein Sof clothes itself through this emanated light. Then you get to the fourth realm, which is the heavens and the entire material world. This is called actualization. It includes 10 heavens. Interesting, another 10 there. The light of the Sefirot spreads through them, and they are called the 10 Sefirot of actualization. Here, holiness pervades physical matter. Whoa. Cool. So to just refresh those 4 realms of existence here that make up 10 inside of them, right? Emanation, creation, formation, actualization. So in this, we already talked about this pattern, this flow up and down, right? Emanation transcends creation. Creation transcends formation. Formation then transcends actualization. Boom, boom, yep. That makes sense to me. And so the thing that we're doing is we're dividing and we're making these layers, but remember they all are found in each one. Since the degrees descend from cause to caused. Whoa. That right there, I have a headache again. I do, I really did. I just got a headache. So, while there are many names, these unerasable names here, emanations, these 10 divine names, they exist one name that compromises them all. And so, again, that's the 4-letter word that is God in the Old Testament, right? Yod He Vav He, right? So, which I think is interesting. I'll have to do more on that because, anyway, so Y, right? So the Yod, right, is wisdom, Chokmah, right? Understanding is H, so Benai. It looks like a V. I hope it's a V. Vod. Hey, Vod, hey. See, this is what confuses me. I really want to learn this stuff, but also we're already in the woods here. So this includes the 6 Sefirot in that category, and then you have H, which is Malchut, so kingdom. And that makes up the Hebrew word, so Ein Sof is concealed within the crown, Keter, while the light from that spreads through these 4 letters, Yod He Vav He. Right? And so the whole point, right, and to end this whole confusing yet hopefully maybe understandable video, hopefully, the people that choose to do this, the righteous ones who try to understand all that is to the unintelligible, ununderstandable, can become a vehicle for the emanations. So through the mystery of the emanation and of their souls, their action in this world, and then the inclination towards one side or the other, right, then you get this potential to be a vehicle or a messenger or a prophet or something deeper than just the kind of basic human being. And, we can't, name or measure or contain Ein Sof, but remember that nothing exists outside of it. So the Sefirot do not divide God, right? They reveal it to us. And we kind of make designations to understand something that is vast and complex. And so these infinite ways, the ways that, God can interact and communicate and do these things in this material world from a place of, infinity outside of existence itself, it becomes knowable from the top down into creation. And so, if anything, I hope that, this leaves you, I know it doesn't really give answers, right? It gives some answers, which is what I'm kind of feeling, but it's more of like something to look for, a change in the way that you view the world. So it's more of an awareness shift than it is like, here's the right answer and here's what you do. And that opens up, the ability to perceive anything, but also that like maybe the idea of our perception is just like a veil, like a mask, like something that, just a blip in this like big grand scale that's always changing and evolving and moving. And every moment of that expression is just another potential for something far greater that we can't grasp. But we're going to try. That's the point here. It's like, okay, I can say that by doing this, I have an awareness that I didn't have before. And I'm appreciative of that. And, I've always kind of seen that same thing, just as you, if you made it this far, that this veil, this thing we think we know, might not be the thing that we actually do know. It's just the thing that we can grasp at the moment on something that we're never going to be able to touch, which is still a beautiful pursuit, in my opinion. And we're going to continue that pursuit. And we're going to explore maybe some more of this infinity. We're going to explore how the infinite reveals itself to us, to the world of those who study this tradition or know more about it. And if you do, please comment down below, say something, or if there's resources or anything that I don't. Again, I'm interested, I'm studying, I'm trying. So if there's something I don't know or I miss or I mess up, put it down below. I read them. Like I want to understand and learn more. And we're just trying to get, this idea of maybe why, like, to understand God, we need to understand why creation itself is not like a departure from God. We're like inside of it, right? Where it's a deeper unfolding of the infinite. And I think that's a worthy pursuit that we're going to keep going down. So thank you very much. I'll see you guys next week. Why did I just do that?